I'll write only part 1 as requested. The first message came in at 8:14 the next morning. Why is my card getting declined? I stared at the screen without blinking. 8 minutes later, another message. Mom, please answer. Then another. This isn't funny. By lunchtime, there were 37 missed calls. I didn't answer a single one. Instead, I poured myself another cup of coffee, carried it onto my back porch, and watched 2 cardinals hop across the bird feeder Harold had built before he died. For the first time in years, I wasn't rushing to solve someone else's problem. But to explain why I let those calls ring, I have to tell you about the dinner the night before. It was a Sunday. Family dinner. The kind I'd been hosting or helping with for almost 15 years. Only this time we were at my son Daniel's house. I'd arrived just after 2 in the afternoon carrying 2 casserole dishes balanced carefully in my arms. Emily opened the front door with her phone pressed between her shoulder and ear. "Oh, good," she said without looking up. "You're here." No hug, no smile. Just relief that the help had arrived. She pointed toward the kitchen. "I haven't even started. The roast's in the oven. Can you handle everything else?" "Sure," I said. It had become my automatic answer. Inside the kitchen, grocery bags covered the counter. Vegetables waited to be chopped. Rolls still needed baking. Potatoes sat unpeeled in the sink. I slipped off my cardigan, tied on one of Emily's floral aprons, and got to work. There's something comforting about familiar routines. The steady rhythm of peeling carrots. The soft thump of a knife against a cutting board. The smell of onions sizzling in butter. For a little while, I almost forgot I was a guest. Then again, guests usually weren't the ones doing all the cooking. From the living room came bursts of laughter. Football played on the television. Daniel's voice drifted in. "Another beer, Mike." Emily laughed at something her sister had said. Every now and then, someone wandered into the kitchen not to help but to grab another drink. "You need anything, Mom?" Daniel asked once, already halfway back toward the living room. "I've got it." He smiled. "Knew you would." He disappeared before I could say another word. I told myself not to think too much about it. They're busy. The kids are young. Everyone pitches in differently. Those were the excuses I'd been making for years. By 5:30, the table looked beautiful. White plates, blue cloth napkins. Candles I'd brought from home because Emily had mentioned she hadn't had time to buy any. I adjusted one fork that wasn't quite straight. Old habits. Harold used to tease me. "You'd align silverware on the Titanic." I smiled to myself, remembering that. Sometimes memories arrive like warm sunlight. Sometimes they remind you exactly who's missing. "Mom," Daniel's voice startled me. "Dinner almost ready." 5 minutes. "Perfect." He walked away again. I reached for the serving bowl when I heard the unmistakable sound of a camera shutter. Click. Emily stood near the doorway holding up her phone. "Oh, don't mind me," she said cheerfully. "You actually look kind of cute doing all this." I laughed politely. "I hope that's a good thing." "It is." She snapped another picture. I didn't think much of it. People take pictures of dinner all the time now. A few minutes later, everyone gathered around the table. The grandchildren climbed into their chairs. Conversation bounced around the room. Baseball, gas prices, summer vacation. Daniel carved the roast while Emily sat beside him, scrolling through her phone with one thumb. Then she giggled. Not a quiet laugh. The kind people make when they're expecting someone else to join in. "Babe," she nudged Daniel. "Look." He leaned toward her screen. Within seconds, he burst out laughing. Not cruelly, just carelessly. "What?" Emily's sister asked. Emily turned her phone around. Everyone near that end of the table chuckled. I couldn't see the screen from where I sat. One of my grandsons reached for another dinner roll. "Grandma, can you pass the butter?" "Of course, sweetheart." I slid it toward him. Emily stood. "I'll be right back." She walked into the kitchen. I followed a moment later because I'd forgotten the gravy boat. Her phone rested on the counter. The screen was still awake. I wasn't trying to snoop. Honestly, I simply glanced down as I reached for the gravy, and that's when I saw it. A photo of me, standing exactly where I'd been 20 minutes earlier, one hand holding a serving spoon, the other adjusting plates, head slightly bowed, apron tied around my waist. Above the picture, her Facebook post. "Our live-in maid? At least she's useful." Below it, comments were already appearing. "Lucky you. Can I borrow her?" Wish mine worked that hard. Then I saw Daniel's reaction. One laughing emoji. Just one. It shouldn't have hurt as much as it did. One tiny yellow face. No words, no explanation. Just laughter. The kitchen suddenly felt too warm. I could hear everyone talking in the dining room only a few feet away. No one knew I'd seen it. Emily walked back in carrying empty glasses. "Oh," she smiled casually. "Could you bring the gravy?" I looked at her. Really looked at her. She had no idea. Or maybe she assumed I'd never see it. Either possibility hurt. "Sure," I said quietly. I picked up the gravy boat with perfectly steady hands. My heart, however, wasn't steady at all. Back at the table, everyone continued eating. Daniel complimented the roast. Emily talked about a neighborhood fundraiser. The grandchildren argued over dessert. Life moved forward as though nothing had happened. I answered when spoken to. I smiled when appropriate. I even wrapped leftovers before leaving. Years of practice had taught me how to hide disappointment. As I carried my empty casserole dishes to the car, Daniel followed me outside. "You okay, Mom?" "I'm fine." "You seem quiet." "I'm just tired." He kissed my cheek. "Thanks again. Couldn't have pulled today off without you." Those words almost broke me. "Couldn't have pulled today off without you." He said them sincerely. And yet, he had laughed when his wife called me the maid. I drove home in silence. The casserole dishes rattled softly in the back seat every time I stopped at a red light. Inside my little house, everything was exactly where I'd left it. Peaceful. Still. No dirty dishes waiting. No laundry piled in baskets. No one calling my name. I sat in Harold's old recliner and stared at the dark television. Then I opened Facebook one more time. The post was still there. More laughing reactions, more comments. Hundreds of people had now seen the woman I'd spent my whole life becoming reduced to a punchline. I closed the app, walked into my bedroom, opened the small fireproof box inside my closet, and for the first time in 15 years, I took out a folder my son had completely forgotten existed. The folder was navy blue, the kind you buy in a 3-pack at Staples and forget in a drawer until tax season. Across the front in my own handwriting were 4 words: Daniel Emergency Support. I sat on the edge of my bed with it resting on my knees, listening to the soft hum of the ceiling fan overhead. For a long moment I didn't open it, because once I did I knew I couldn't pretend anymore. Inside were bank forms, insurance letters, copies of checks, automatic transfer confirmations, passwords written on yellow sticky notes, and the original agreement Daniel had signed 12 years earlier when he and Emily were about to lose their first house. I still remembered that afternoon. Daniel had been 41 then, old enough to be proud, and young enough to think one bad year meant failure. He'd sat at my kitchen table with both hands wrapped around a coffee mug, though he hadn't taken a single sip. "Mom," he said, staring at the table instead of me, "I don't know how to tell Emily." "Tell her what?" He swallowed. "That we're behind. 2 months on the mortgage. The car insurance is due Friday, and the credit card company called again." I had been folding dish towels. I remember that because I set one down so slowly, as if sudden movement might make him fall apart. "Does Emily know any of this?" He shook his head. "She's pregnant. She's already stressed. I kept thinking I'd catch up." I pulled out the chair across from him. "Daniel, bills don't disappear because you're embarrassed." "I know that." But his voice cracked on the last word. That was the first time I helped, not because he asked for a handout, because he looked like a little boy sitting there in a grown man's body, terrified he'd failed his family. So I opened an emergency account. My name on it. His name added so he wouldn't feel humiliated. The plan was simple: temporary help, a safety net, a mother's backup. Only temporary things can grow roots when nobody pays attention. At first I covered 1 mortgage payment, then car insurance, then a furnace repair during a January cold snap, then preschool tuition when my grandson's daycare threatened to suspend him over a missed payment. Each time Daniel said, "I'll pay you back." Each time I said, "When you can." And each time life moved on. Sitting on my bed that night, I turned page after page and felt something harden inside me. Not anger, not yet. More like clarity. There is a strange pain in seeing your love reduced to paperwork. $700 here, $1,200 there, $398 for car insurance, $2,000 for property taxes. 1 automatic transfer every month labeled simply family cushion. I touched that line with my fingertip. Family cushion? That was what I had been. Not mother, not guest, not elder. Cushion. Something soft for everyone else to land on. My phone buzzed on the nightstand. A text from Daniel. "Thanks again for today, Mom. Get some rest." I stared at it. My thumb hovered over the screen. Part of me wanted to write, "Did you see what your wife posted?" Another part wanted to ask, "Was it funny to you?" Instead, I turned the phone face down. Sleep did not come easily. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that little laughing face. Ridiculous, isn't it, a woman my age undone by an emoji? But it wasn't the emoji. It was all the years behind it. The school pickups in rainstorms. The meals left in their refrigerator. The times Emily handed me a grocery list like I worked there. The afternoons I canceled my own appointments because, Mom, we really need you. The birthday parties where I arrived early to decorate and stayed late to clean. And through it all, I kept telling myself this is what family does. By sunrise, I had stopped telling myself that. I got dressed carefully. Not fancy. Just my beige slacks, a soft blue blouse, and the pearl earrings Harold bought me for our 30th anniversary. I brushed my hair, put on lipstick, and made my bed with hospital corners, because some habits stay with you forever. Before leaving, I stood in the kitchen and made toast. For once, no one needed pancakes. No one needed lunches packed. No one called to ask where the soccer cleats were. The quiet felt unfamiliar but not unpleasant. At 9:03, I walked into First Commonwealth Bank. The young teller at the front smiled. "Good morning, how can we help you? I need to speak with someone about closing a few automatic transfers." She glanced at my folder. "Of course, do you have an appointment?" "No." Something in my voice made her stop tapping at her keyboard. "Let me see who's available." 10 minutes later, I sat across from a woman named Patricia Holloway, late 50s, silver bob, reading glasses on a chain. She had the calm manner of someone who had seen every kind of family money trouble and no longer shocked easily. She opened my account profile on her computer. "Mrs. Whitaker, you have several recurring transfers connected to this account." "I know." She adjusted her glasses. "Some are going to your son's household account. Some appear to cover a credit card payment, insurance drafts, and one education-related withdrawal." "That's right." "Are you looking to modify the amounts?" "No." She looked up. "I want them stopped. All of them." The words entered the room and sat between us. Patricia didn't react right away. She clicked through a few screens, then folded her hands. "Just so I understand, you're requesting cancellation of all voluntary automatic transfers from your personal account to these external accounts." "Yes." "Effective immediately." "Yes." She nodded, professional but gentle. "May I ask if anyone has access to this account besides you? My son is listed on one emergency account. I want him removed from that as well." That made her pause. "That may require closing the account and reopening funds under your name only." "Then that's what we'll do." My voice sounded steadier than I felt. Patricia printed forms. The machine behind her whirred and clicked. Outside her glass office, people carried on with ordinary Monday errands. A man deposited checks. A woman complained about a debit card replacement. Somewhere a printer jammed. And there I was, quietly dismantling 15 years of invisible support. Patricia slid the first document toward me. "Initial here, sign here. This confirms cancellation of the scheduled mortgage assistance transfer." Mortgage assistance. Such a clean phrase for what had once been panic tears, and Daniel whispering, "Please don't tell Emily." I signed. "Here for the insurance draft." I signed. "Here for the credit card protection payment." I signed. "Here for the tuition transfer." My pen stopped. "The grandchildren." That one hurt, Patricia noticed. "You don't have to decide everything today." I looked down at my signature half-formed on the page. Then I thought of my grandson asking for butter while adults laughed at me from the other end of the table. Children learn what they see. And if I kept paying silently while being mocked publicly, what exactly was I teaching them? I finished signing. By the time we were done, my hand ached. Patricia gathered the papers into a neat stack. "You're aware these cancellations may affect payments scheduled within the next 24 to 48 hours. "Yes. If those accounts rely on your transfers to cover balances, transactions may be declined." "I understand." She studied me for a second, not nosy, just human. "Would you like printed confirmation?" "Yes, please." While she printed, my phone buzzed. "Emily." I let it ring. Patricia pretended not to notice. Then Daniel called. I let that ring too. The printer spat out 3 pages. Patricia placed them in a folder and handed it to me with both hands. "You're all set, Mrs. Whitaker." I stood slowly. "Thank you." At the door she said, "Take care of yourself." Maybe she said that to everyone. But that morning it felt like permission. Outside the air smelled like cut grass and car exhaust. I sat behind the wheel for a while before starting the engine. My phone buzzed again in my purse. This time a text preview appeared on the screen. "Emily. Hey, did something happen with the card?" I didn't open it. I drove home by the long route past the library, the little park where Harold used to feed ducks, and the diner where we had Sunday breakfast for nearly 30 years. At a red light, I caught my reflection in the rearview mirror. For once, I didn't look like a tired old woman waiting to be needed. I looked like someone who had finally remembered where the door was. When I pulled into my driveway, my phone started ringing again. Then again. Then again. I carried my purse inside, placed the folder on the kitchen table, and made myself a fresh cup of coffee. The screen lit up one more time. Daniel. Then Emily. Then Daniel again. And before I even took my first sip, the first voicemail arrived. The first voicemail was from Emily. Her voice came through bright at the beginning, almost casual, the way people sound when they still believe a problem is small. "Hey Linda, it's me. I think something weird is going on with the grocery card. It declined at Kroger. Super embarrassing. Can you call me back?" She laughed once, thin and nervous. "Anyway, I'm sure it's nothing." I stood in my kitchen with the phone in my hand and watched steam rise from my coffee. Nothing. That word had covered a lot in my family. Nothing when I was too tired to drive across town. Nothing when Emily forgot to say thank you. Nothing when Daniel changed the subject instead of defending me. By the second voicemail, her tone had changed. "Linda, it's declining again." I tried the backup card and it's saying payment not authorized. "Did you maybe move something? Daniel says you handle some of the account stuff, so just call me." Some of the account stuff. I set the phone face down beside the sugar bowl. Then it rang again. Daniel. I let it go. I wasn't ready to hear his voice yet. For years, my phone had trained me like a bell trains an old dog. It rang and I moved. Someone needed soup or a ride or emergency cash or someone to sit with a sick child. I never asked whether I had the strength. I simply picked up. That morning I watched it ring. The sound filled the kitchen, sharp and impatient. Then silence, then another buzz. Text from Emily. "Your bank messed something up. My card got declined in front of half the store." A minute later. "I'm standing here with groceries. Please answer." I did not smile. I did not feel victorious. Revenge. The real kind doesn't feel like fireworks. It feels like finally setting down a heavy box you've carried so long your arms forgot how to be empty. At 10:42, Daniel left his first voicemail. "Mom, hey, Emily's having trouble with the household card. Did the bank call you, maybe fraud protection or something? Give me a ring." His voice was calm. Still polite. Still unaware. I took my coffee to the back porch and sat in Harold's old wicker chair. The June air was warm enough to soften the edges of everything. A lawnmower droned somewhere down the street. My neighbor's wind chimes tapped lightly in the breeze. For 15 minutes I listened to ordinary life. Then my phone buzzed again. And again. And again. By noon I had 11 missed calls. By 1:18. At 1:37 Emily sent, "This is ridiculous. The gas station declined too." At 1:51. "Did you cancel something without telling us?" At 2:08. "Daniel is leaving work early." That one made my stomach tighten. I looked toward the front window as though his truck might already be there. It wasn't. Not yet. The next voicemail was not calm. "Mom," Daniel said, breathless now, "what is going on? The mortgage company just emailed me that the scheduled transfer failed. Emily's upset. I'm trying not to panic here, but I need you to answer your phone." Mortgage company. There it was. Not the groceries. Not the gas. The real foundation shifting under his feet. I pressed pause and sat very still. There had been a time when that message would have sent me grabbing my purse and car keys. I would have driven straight to the bank, apologized for a mistake I hadn't made, and patched the hole before anyone had to feel uncomfortable. Instead, I opened the folder on my kitchen table. Every confirmation Patricia had printed was there. Clean. Legal. Mine. My hands still trembled, but not from doubt. From all the years I had spent believing kindness required my own disappearance. At 3:12, Emily finally sent the message I knew was coming. "Why is my card getting declined?" I read it twice. Then a third time. Not, "Are you okay?" Not, "Did we hurt you?" Not, "Can we talk?" Only the card. I placed my thumbs on the screen. Typed one sentence. Deleted it. Typed another. Deleted that too. There were so many things I could have said. I could have reminded her of the Facebook post. I could have listed every bill I'd paid. I could have told her shame should have arrived before the declined card did. But long speeches give people places to hide. So I wrote only, "You should ask your live-in maid." I hit send before courage had time to leave me. For almost a full minute, nothing happened. Then the little typing bubbles appeared. Stopped. Appeared again. Stopped again. Then Daniel called. I declined it. He called again. I declined that too. At 3:29, a truck door slammed outside my house. I didn't move at first. My living room seemed suddenly too quiet. The old wall clock ticked above the mantel. A blue jay shrieked in the maple tree. Then Daniel knocked. Not gently. Mom, another knock. Mom, I know you're in there. I smoothed the front of my blouse and opened the door. Daniel stood on the porch in his work shirt tie, loosened hair windblown like he'd driven with the windows down. He looked angry, but underneath it I saw fear. That almost softened me. Almost. What are you doing? He said. No, hello. No, are you all right? Just that. I stepped aside. You can come in if you're going to speak respectfully. His jaw tightened, but he walked in. The moment he saw the folder on the kitchen table, his face changed. What's that? Sit down, Daniel. I'm not a child. No, I said. You're not. That's why this conversation is overdue. He pulled out a chair but didn't sit. He gripped the back of it with both hands. Emily is humiliated. Her card declined at the store, Mom. The mortgage payment bounced. Do you understand what that does? Yes. Then why would you do this? I looked at him across the kitchen. This man I had rocked through fevers, cheered at Little League games, helped through divorce scares and layoffs and sleepless nights. Because your wife called me your live-in maid in front of the whole internet. His expression flickered. He knew. The silence told me he knew. Mom, he rubbed a hand over his face. It was a joke. No, a joke is when both people laugh. She didn't mean anything by it. You reacted with a laughing emoji. His eyes dropped. Just for a second. But I saw it. That was stupid, he muttered. It was honest. He looked up sharply. What does that mean? It means for once I saw clearly how you both see me. That's not fair. Fair. The word came out softer than I expected. I opened the folder and laid the first bank statement on the table. Fair is knowing who pays for what before you laugh at them. Daniel glanced down. At first he looked irritated, like I was making some dramatic point. Then his eyes began moving over the numbers. Mortgage transfer, insurance draft, credit card payment, school tuition, emergency deposits. His brow pulled together. Where did you get these? They're mine. He picked up the top page. These are from your account. Yes. He swallowed. No, this can't be right. I slid another statement forward. And this. He sat down then. Not because I told him to. Because his knees seemed to decide for him. Mom. His voice was lower now. I kept going. Property taxes 2 years ago. Another page. Your furnace repair. Another. Grace's dental surgery. His hand went to his mouth. Stop. But I didn't. Not yet. Summer camp, car insurance, the emergency credit card Emily uses for groceries, the one that declined today. His face had gone pale. He stared at the papers as if they were written in another language. I thought, he stopped. What did you think? He looked at me then, and for the first time that day he looked like my son instead of an angry customer. I thought I was handling more of it. Yes, I said quietly, I know you did. The room settled around us. Outside a car passed slowly. Somewhere in the house the refrigerator clicked on. Daniel touched one of the statements with 2 fingers. Why didn't you tell me it was this much? I did tell you, not with totals, not with speeches. But every time I said I was tired, every time I asked you to talk to Emily about how she treated me, every time I said I couldn't keep doing everything, you changed the subject. He closed his eyes. I didn't know. No, I said. You didn't want to know. That landed harder than I expected. His shoulders dropped. For a while, neither of us spoke. Then his phone rang. Emily. Her name flashed across the screen on my kitchen table. Daniel looked at it, then at me. I thought he might decline it. Instead, he answered on speaker. Daniel, Emily snapped. Did you fix it? His eyes stayed on the papers. No, he said. What do you mean, no, we need that card? The school just emailed, and your mother sent me some nasty text about a maid. Are you with her? Daniel's mouth opened, but no words came out. Emily kept going. Tell her this is not the time for one of her little hurt feelings. We have bills. Something inside my son finally shifted. I saw it in his face before he spoke. Emily, he said slowly, we need to talk. She huffed. About what? Daniel looked down at the stack of papers between us. About who has actually been paying them. For the first week, Daniel called every evening. Not to ask for money. Not anymore. He called because his whole life had suddenly become heavier, and he didn't know where to put the weight. The first call came on a Tuesday. I was standing at my kitchen sink rinsing a peach when my phone lit up. Daniel. I almost let it go. Then I dried my hands on a towel and answered. Hello? There was a pause on the other end. I could hear traffic, then a car door closing. Mom, he said, sounding worn down. Can I ask you something? That depends. He breathed out through his nose. Fair enough. I waited. How do you keep track of everything? I looked out the window at a squirrel digging in my flower bed. Everything is a big word. The bills, the kids' schedules, groceries, dinner, laundry, all of it. He gave a small, humorless laugh. I picked up Grace from camp today and forgot Tyler had dentist at 4. Emily thought I had it. I thought she had it. Then the dentist office called charging a missed appointment fee. I didn't rush in with sympathy. That was old Linda's habit. Did you write it down? On my phone. Did you look at your phone? Silence. Then softer, no. There you go. He sighed. I guess I deserved that. No, Daniel. You deserved the appointment fee. That was the lesson. He was quiet for a few seconds, then surprised me by chuckling. A small sound. Tired but real. After we hung up, I stood in the kitchen holding that peach until juice ran down my thumb. I did not feel cruel, but I did feel something unfamiliar. Space. By Thursday, he had discovered grocery prices. Do you know milk is almost $5, he said. It depends where you shop. And chicken breasts, good Lord. Buy whole chicken when it's on sale. How do you know that? I raised you. He didn't answer right away. Then he said, I know. Those 2 words carried more weight than any apology he had tried to offer so far. Emily did not call. Not once. But I heard about her through Daniel in little pieces he probably didn't mean to give me. She was angry the first week. Embarrassed the second. Quiet by the third. She's not sleeping much, he told me one evening. I had just come home from the library with 2 mystery novels and a flyer for a watercolor class tucked into my purse. Why not? He hesitated. She's worried what people are saying. About the declined card? No, he cleared his throat. About the post. I set my purse on the counter. What about it? Somebody screenshotted it before she deleted it. There it was. The internet has a memory sharper than any family argument. And her friend Michelle asked her if that was really how she talked about me. About you. His voice dipped. Emily got defensive, said people were taking it wrong. Were they? No. The word came fast. Then he added, no, they weren't. I didn't ask more, I didn't need to. For years, Emily had moved through family life as if comfort was proof of importance. If dinner appeared, someone made it. If the house stayed clean, someone cleaned it. If the children were picked up, someone drove through traffic and waited in a pickup line with the air conditioner running. That someone had usually been me. Once I stopped, their house began making noise. Not literal noise. The kind you hear when a machine loses a part. Laundry piled up first. Daniel mentioned it accidentally. I wore the same dress shirt twice this week, he said, then quickly added, I washed it. Sort of. Sort of. I put it in the washer. And forgot to move it to the dryer. I could picture it. Sour clothes sitting heavy and wet overnight. Emily opening the lid, making a face, blaming him blaming the calendar, both of them realizing no magical grandmother had slipped in and fixed it. Then came dinners. Tyler asked why frozen pizza tastes sad, Daniel said one night. I laughed before I could stop myself. That child has always had opinions. He misses your pot roast. He misses being cared for. Daniel went quiet. I thought maybe I'd gone too far. Then he said, yeah, I think we all do. Meanwhile, my own life began opening like a window. At first, I didn't know what to do with the time. That sounds ridiculous, doesn't it? A grown woman with an empty calendar and no idea how to enjoy it. On Monday morning, I woke at 6 because my body expected a crisis. No crisis came. I made coffee, watered my African violets, and sat on the porch until the neighborhood school bus rolled by. For the first time in years, I watched it without calculating who needed to be picked up later. On Wednesday, I went to the library, not to drop off the grandchildren's books. For myself? The librarian Janet looked over her glasses and smiled. Linda Whitaker, I haven't seen you without a child attached to your elbow in ages. I know, I said. I'm trying something radical. What's that? Having a morning? She laughed and slid a brochure across the desk. Then have this too, Senior Travel Club. They're doing a fall trip through New England, leaves in October. Travel Club. Don't look so scared, it's not skydiving. I picked up the brochure. There was a picture of a covered bridge on the front, red leaves reflected in still water. Harold and I had always talked about seeing Vermont in the fall. We never got there. Life kept needing us elsewhere. My throat tightened, but not in the old helpless way. This grief had air inside it. That Friday, I attended a watercolor class in the community center basement. 12 folding tables, a coffee urn in the corner, and a woman named Carol who wore turquoise earrings big enough to announce themselves before she did. "First time?" she asked, patting the chair beside her. "First time in 40 years. Perfect. Then you haven't learned any bad habits recently." I painted a crooked bowl of lemons. Terrible lemons. One looked like a potato with jaundice. Carol leaned over and whispered, "Frame it. Confuse your enemies." I laughed so hard I had to put my brush down. That laugh startled me. It came from somewhere young. Somewhere I thought had closed for good. 2 weeks after the bank appointment, Grace called me from Daniel's phone. "Grandma." "Hi, sweetheart. Are you mad at us?" The question pierced straight through the armor I had been polishing. I sat down slowly at the kitchen table. "No, baby, I'm not mad at you. Mom said you're busy now." "I am a little busier." "With what?" I looked at the watercolor lemons drying on the counter. "Painting." "You're painting." "Trying to." "Can I see?" "Someday." She was quiet. Then in a smaller voice, "I miss Sunday dinner." I closed my eyes. "I miss parts of it too." "What parts?" "The part where you steal extra rolls." She giggled. Then I heard Daniel in the background say, "Grace, give me the phone." Her voice moved away. "Grandma says she misses my rolls." A rustle. Then Daniel came on. "Mom." "Yes." "I'm sorry." She grabbed my phone. "It's all right." Another pause. "She asks about you a lot." I figured. "And Tyler asked why you don't come over anymore." "What did you tell him?" He exhaled. "I told him grown-ups made some mistakes." That was new. Daniel had not said Emily made mistakes. He had not said Grandma got sensitive. He said grown-ups. Plural. It wasn't everything, but it was a start. Then, one Sunday afternoon, almost a month after the post, my doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone. I had flour on my hands because I was making biscuits for myself, just 6 small ones instead of 24 for a crowd. Through the front window, I saw Emily standing on my porch. Alone. No Danielle. No children. She wore jeans and a pale green sweater, her hair pulled back without the usual polished effort. In one hand, she held her phone. In the other, a folded piece of paper. For a moment, I didn't move. Then she looked down at the phone, wiped under one eye with her thumb, and knocked again. When I opened the door, she did not smile. She looked smaller than I remembered. "Linda," she said, voice unsteady, "I need to show you something." And then she turned the phone toward me. On Emily's phone was the post. Not the original one. A screenshot. My picture was still there, apron around my waist, serving spoon in my hand, head bent over her dining room table. But this time Emily had zoomed in on the comments underneath. Some were from her friends. Some from people I barely knew. One comment from a woman named Michelle sat right in the middle. "Emily, this isn't funny. That's your husband's mother. One day your kids will remember how you treated her." Emily's thumb trembled against the edge of the phone. "I deleted it," she said. I looked at her face, not the screen. "Because people criticized you." Her mouth opened, then closed. For a moment she looked like she wanted the easier answer. Then she shook her head. "At first, yes." The honesty surprised me. She looked down at the porch boards. "At first I was embarrassed because people saw it. Then Grace asked me what a live-in maid was." My hand tightened on the doorframe. Emily swallowed. She saw the screenshot on my tablet. I thought I had closed it, but I hadn't. She asked if Grandma was our maid. Neither of us spoke. A car passed slowly along the street. Somewhere across the neighborhood, a dog barked twice and stopped. "What did you tell her?" I asked. Emily's eyes filled, but the tears didn't fall. I told her no. I told her Grandma was family. Her voice cracked on that last word. And then she asked why I said it. That was the thing about children. They don't let you hide behind tone. They don't understand just joking when the joke has teeth. Emily held out the folded paper. I wrote down what I wanted to say because I didn't trust myself not to make excuses. I stepped back from the door. "Come in." She followed me to the kitchen where flowers still dusted the counter, and 6 biscuits waited on a baking sheet. She noticed them. "You're baking." For myself. A little color rose in her cheeks. "Right." We sat at the table. For once, Emily did not look around for something I could do for her. She kept both hands wrapped around that folded paper, pressing the creases flat with her thumbs. "I'm sorry," she said. I waited. Not because I wanted her to suffer. Because I had learned that silence can make room for truth. She looked at the paper, then pushed it aside. "No, I don't want to read it. It sounds like something from a greeting card." She took a shaky breath. I was cruel, not careless, cruel. That word landed hard. I called you a maid because it made me feel important. Because you were doing everything I didn't want to do, and instead of feeling grateful, I acted superior. Her voice grew quieter, and Daniel laughed because I made it easy for him to laugh. I said Daniel is responsible for Daniel. I know. She nodded quickly. I know he is. I'm not trying to blame him. She wiped under one eye. I used your kindness like it was a household appliance, like the dishwasher, like the dryer, something that just worked in the background. Outside sunlight moved across the kitchen floor. For a second I saw the younger woman she might have been before pride hardened around her. I don't expect you to forgive me today, she said. And I'm not here to ask you to turn the payments back on. That mattered. More than flowers would have. More than a public apology would have. What are you asking for then, I said. Emily looked straight at me. A chance to learn how to be family differently. I leaned back in my chair. There will be boundaries, I know. I won't be available every time someone forgets to plan. I know. I won't fund your life. Her eyes dropped. We've already made a budget. Daniel and I are meeting with a credit counselor next week. That surprised me too. We canceled the vacation, she added, sold the extra car. Daniel picked up 2 Saturday shifts for a while. She gave a sad little laugh. The kids think meal planning is a board game now. I almost smiled. Almost. Then I said, and if I come to dinner again, I come as a guest. Emily nodded. You sit down first. The biscuits in the oven timer beeped before I could answer. Emily stood automatically, then stopped herself. May I? It was such a small question. But small things had started the hurt. Maybe small things could help mend it too. I nodded. She took the biscuits from the oven and placed them on the stovetop, carefully using both mitts. The next Sunday, Daniel came by alone. He brought no children, no emergency, no stack of bills. Just himself. He stood in my living room beside Harold's old recliner and looked at the framed family photos on the mantel. I've been thinking about Dad, he said. That caught me off guard. Your father would have had plenty to say. Daniel gave a weak smile. Yeah, probably would have started with, Son, what in God's name are you doing? Despite myself, I laughed. Then Daniel's face crumpled in a way I had not seen since he was young. I'm sorry, Mom. He covered his eyes with one hand. I let you disappear in front of me. I walked over slowly, not to rescue him from the feeling, just to stand near him while he had it. I knew you helped, he said, but I made sure not to know how much, because if I knew I'd have to change. That's probably true. He nodded, accepting it. I don't want my kids growing up thinking love means using somebody until they break. That was the first apology that reached the deepest place. Not because it was pretty, because it was grown. Rebuilding took time. We didn't jump back into Sunday dinners the way people do in movies. For a while we met at neutral places. A diner, the park, my porch. Emily brought coffee once and did not ask where the mugs were. She found them herself. Daniel started calling ahead instead of assuming. The children wrote little notes and mailed them with crooked stamps. Then 3 months after the post, they invited me to dinner. I almost said no. My hand hovered over the phone, the old fear rising. What if nothing had really changed? But Grace had written the invitation herself in purple marker. Grandma, please come as our special guest. So I went. When I arrived, the front door opened before I could knock. Tyler stood there in a collared shirt with wet hair combed flat. Grandma, you're not allowed in the kitchen. I raised my eyebrows. I'm not. Nope, house rule. From the dining room, Daniel called Tyler, let her come inside first. Emily appeared behind him wearing an apron, not handing it to me, wearing it. The table was already set. Not perfectly. One fork was on the wrong side. A napkin had fallen off a chair. But no one seemed embarrassed. Daniel pulled out a chair. Mom. His voice was gentle. Please sit. I sat. For the first time in years, I watched my family move around me. Daniel carried the roast. Emily brought potatoes. Grace poured water with both hands wrapped around the pitcher. Then my granddaughter came to my side, serious as a judge. Grandma, she said, you sit first. We'll serve you tonight. No one laughed. No one reached for a phone, and I felt Harold there somehow in the quiet. Not as a ghost, as memory, as witness, as the man who had always believed love and dignity belonged at the same table. Dinner wasn't perfect. The carrots were undercooked. The gravy had lumps. Tyler spilled water before dessert. But when Emily reached for a towel, Daniel got up first. I've got it, he said. And he did. That night, driving home, I understood something I wish I had learned earlier. Helping your family is beautiful. But losing yourself inside their needs is not love. It teaches the wrong lesson to everyone. Gratitude costs nothing, but entitlement can bankrupt a home long before money runs out. And sometimes the kindest thing a mother can do is stop cushioning the fall long enough for grown children to learn how to stand. So, if you are the quiet one in your family, the one who cooks, pays, drives, forgives, and keeps showing up, remember this. Your love is a gift, not a job. And anyone who wants a seat at your table should learn the difference.